Ever since I was a little kid, my weight would fluctuate. I was one of those kids that in primary school was chubby, and then as soon as they hit 13, I shut up and I was tall, got skinny. But what I've found is that my diet can really impact quickly how much weight I gain. I feel like I'm an easy gainer in that way. I can put on size, be it muscle or fat, quite quickly. And depending on what I do, it might take me a little while to lose it. Now, obviously, discipline comes into everything. I'm not saying I'm the most disciplined in the world, but I am saying that I can be disciplined, and I've found success in the past, but it does take a little while to come off sometimes. But I've experimented with many different things, and 3 of the ones that I've found have helped me the most, and I know they're different diets that get talked about quite a bit, is carnivore, intermittent fasting, and extended fasting. Now, extended fasting is not really something you typically do a lot. This might be a yearly thing, it might be a spiritual thing, or it might be health reasons. So I popped it in there, although I've already done a video on my experience the first time I did a 14-day fast, and you can check that out. I'll put a link in the description so you can go check that out if you want. So let's talk about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is something that I really enjoyed doing about a handful of years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was all in. I loved it. I was trying to figure out a way to gain muscle and lose fat as easily as possible. Now, I am not unique in this. We're all doing that. We're all trying to do that as much as possible. And at this particular time, I was getting more and more into the gym. I was getting way more into the gym. I loved lifting. I started quite late. I liked the idea of going to the gym. However, I would do the classic move of you start at the gym, you go hard and fast, you get super sore, and then you end up bailing way quicker because you went, oh, I'm going to go 4 times a week in my first week. Then by the 3rd or 4th week, you're just cooked. And then you give up, or you do something else, or I'll do something else. I'll do rowing or whatever. And you end up not really going. This time I was determined to do it, and I ended up starting and just figured what I'll do is I'll lift and then I'll wait until I've fully recovered and then I'll go again. And when my body gets used to it. So I would do twice a week and then eventually 3 times a week after a couple weeks, and then 3, 4, 5, etc. Ended up loving it. And coupled with that, I was learning a lot about intermittent fasting because there's some people who are very big advocates on it. Obviously the health benefits, but also the fat loss benefits. And that's what I was kind of more keen on. I just wanted to look better. I was putting on a bit of size at the gym, which was a really happy surprise because I just wanted to feel stronger. But then I started getting bigger and I really enjoyed that. Putting a bit of muscle in my frame, but I didn't want to be as chubby. I didn't want to carry any more excess weight than I needed to. So I started intermittent fasting. There's many different ways to intermittent fast. You could have your last meal quite early and then basically have a few hours no food, wake up in the morning and have breakfast and you're good to go. You could do that. You could do the classic 16-8, your eating window is at 8 hours, 16 is fasting. Part of that, usually half of that, would be sleep. So there's so many different ways to do it. As I started, I realized I started feeling really good fasting. And some of the things I used were black coffee, sugar-free gum, and I used to walk a lot. Coupling all these really helped because they were appetite suppressants. I began feeling really good postponing my first meal. I was not very systematic with my intermittent fasting, but I knew that I at least wanted to get a 16-hour fast in, but I really started competing with myself and I would go more and more. So I may not eat until 2 p.m., then maybe 4 p.m., maybe 6 p.m., and that would be my first meal. And I would have had a plunger or 2 plunger coffee, weird metric otherwise, plunger coffee, and I would have at least 1 or 2 of them a day. And if I really needed some help, I would have sugar-free gum and all these different things that would kind of just be able to push it that extra hour, that extra 2 hours. And in coupling that with walking quite a lot, I'd walk in the morning, I would incorporate that throughout my day. And I just found that it was able to put things off and off and off until I could eat later on. And I really enjoyed this. So I think also with that, the enjoyment, if I'm really reflecting on it now, is the fact that I was competing with myself. I was going, well, see if I can get to 3, see if I can get to 5. And I was able to do that. And I did 1 meal a day a little bit. And that was also enjoyable, but I didn't quite like it as much as intermittent fasting. But with the fasting, some of the benefits I found were I felt so clear in my mind. The mental clarity was awesome. It was such a change. I could focus really well, and I felt energetic in my body, but kind of my spirit in that way, because I think I was focused, I was mentally clear, but also physically I was running quite well. But also I think what helped, if to be fully transparent, was that I was lifting at the time and walking at least 10 to 12,000 steps a day. So what I would do was I would get up in the morning and I'd probably have my black coffee, and then I'd go to the gym and I'd do at least 30 minutes on the treadmill. I would lift, and in between sets, I walk around the gym just to continue to walk and not get stuck on my phone or do other things. And then would walk throughout the day. But what I found with the gym, that high from the gym mixed with the fasting, almost like a high as well, I was able to ride this really great mental clarity wave, mental and physical clarity, or physical energy and mental clarity throughout the day. And having that in the morning meant that I was able to just keep that going throughout the day. I wasn't doing it late, wasn't doing anything like that. And that was really good. I really enjoyed that. So I kept doing it. I was intermittent fasting for years, and I really, really, really loved it. I just felt energized by it. So as far as enjoyment wise, I loved it. I really enjoyed intermittent fasting, and I would recommend doing it if you have no problem. If you're looking to try something, try that. Start small, see how you go. The reason why I think I liked it as well was that postponing that first meal meant that I was able to go longer. I was able to not get as hungry throughout the day, because I find that if I wake up and eat straight away, it's almost like I've lit a match, and then I'm just hungrier throughout the day. I've just kind of awoken my stomach, awoken my appetite. For me, if I postpone that, I'm able to just function for longer on less. And I would always lift, and I still lift fasted 90% of the time. And I like that. But some people, they have particular pre-workout meals and all that sort of stuff, and that's fine. Whatever works is great. But I try to lift early, and I try to lift fasted. But with intermittent fasting, it was a very enjoyable experience, and I would recommend trying it. I did it for years, and I occasionally do it now. But yeah, I've just been experimenting with a few other things. Side note, if you try this and you're doing it similar to me, where you're kind of competing with yourself, be warned that whatever you have first, try and make it protein heavy so you recover, but just try to make it good food, abundant. Because the best example of this for me, and that's what I would normally do, but the best example of this for me was, I remember there was like a function that we had with some friends, and I remember I'm like, I'm going to fast all day. I'm going to do arms so I look way bigger. And this is all my tactics, and it's not much of a tactic. Anyway, and I would do arms, and I had worked out, and I had walked, and I had worked, and so I'd gone to work, I had done my walking, I'd done my lifting, all this sort of stuff. And then about 5:36 comes along, and we're meeting at a brewery, and we're going to have food, dinner, and some beers there. And I really like beer, and I was super keen. Had my first beer after lifting, after walking, and I felt garbage. I felt so sick. I felt it was close to feeling like an intense flu, because all my muscles ached, but particularly the muscles I worked out. So it was almost as if my body was waiting to get nourishment to repair the damage that we do by lifting, and then allowing it to recover. And then the first thing I gave it, I kind of poisoned it. I gave it alcohol, and it punished me immediately. I was just like, wow, I feel so garbage. I'm not drinking anymore. I need to eat something. And I had to eat like a decent meal, like a decent large meal in order to feel okay, because I felt like I was going to vomit. I felt sick. I just felt like I wanted to go to bed. I felt horrible. So if you do intermittent fasting or any sort of fasting, when that first meal comes, please don't do that. Don't have alcohol first. Don't have fried foods first, ideally, but especially don't have alcohol. That was rough, and I'm not doing that again. Extended fasting. Now, this I feel was a more of an extreme version of the benefits, especially the underlying benefits, the ones you may not notice immediately, than intermittent fasting. I know intermittent fasting was good for me. I know that. I felt it, but the mental clarity every day was fantastic. With the extended fasting, I did feel mental clarity. You do feel more fatigued because you're running on less. That makes total sense. But the benefits of your body doing the autophagy is greater. So the autophagy of the good cells, basically doing a stock take and eating up your bad cells, getting rid of them, kind of seeing what's needed and what's not. That does happen with intermittent fasting, to my knowledge. But with extended fasting, it's just more. So naturally, that's going to go up. Your fatigue will also go up. You're just running on less. But your body's all right. Your body's fine with this. Like, unless you're 2% body fat, you'll be okay. Like, you'll be fine. Or if you've got other health issues, you'll be okay. You'll be fine. But this was more of a spiritual thing for me. I'd prayed about it and I wanted to feel closer to God and to hear him more and to talk to him more. But I also really wanted the physical benefits. And since I've done my last 14-day, I've done 2. My last was last year, but I've done several days of no food. So my most recent was around Christmas time. I did 5 days, nothing other than water. Now, I've talked about this again in that other video that I've done, but I would recommend electrolytes because your body needs to absorb something, because you could be fasting and smashing water. And I drink about 6 liters a day. And I found that I was dehydrated. I'm like, how? How am I dehydrated? But my body wasn't just absorbing, the cells weren't absorbing things as much. So salt, magnesium, all the electrolytes that keep replenishing your body and your cells, please take, because you will feel so much better. There are benefits of day-to-day stuff with extended fasting. You will find that you're mentally clearer than normal, but the fatigue can be a lot. But if you're super hydrated, normally you'll be okay. Normally you'll be all right. But they're just those more extreme things to watch out for. But I go into that a little bit more detail in the other video. Also, it did really help with inflammation. Intermittent fasting also helps, but extended fasting, I found significant increases in inflammation removal. Like stuff that was really bothering me, proper pain that I was having from old injuries, from an inflammatory diet, higher sugars, higher refined carbohydrates. Once those were removed and my body was doing a stock take and I was just having water and electrolytes, I felt so much better about 5 days in particular. And one of the reasons why I did 5-day last year was because of that, but also just to see what my body did, how it recovered, how it looked, and just kind of doing that. Now, I wouldn't recommend it as a weight loss norm, perhaps to kick off a new diet, perhaps to kick off a health regime that you're doing, maybe. But being reliant on not eating, not the wisest move. And you know your personality type. If you're an addictive personality type, if you've got other issues that are going on, if you've got any sort of eating disorder issues, if you've got any sort of identity issues, these could play into that. I wouldn't recommend playing with it or monitoring it properly. That's another way, is monitoring it properly and having people help you be accountable. However, be cautious, because you don't need that stuff when you're already dealing with other things. But as my experience dictates, it helped with inflammation a ton. It was mental and physical clarity. I felt light. It got rid of like gut issues and things like that. That was awesome. Once I figure out hydration, I was great. I was way better. And you could go for longer than 14. It's just a long time. That's all. But ultimately, very beneficial. I am wanting to do one a year. I'm chickening out a bit at the moment, to be honest, but I know I can do it. I'm just chickening out a little bit. So I'll let you know if I get another one in this year. So extended fasting, carnivore. Carnivore has been something that I wanted to play with for quite a while. I'd never really done it. I've always eaten more protein, more meat, etc. And particularly going to the gym, that was a big focus of mine. I wanted to put on size. I wanted to lose body fat. Now, carnivore is like just an extreme keto, right? It's fat and protein, essentially. No real carbs, no sugars. And ultimately, if we're honest, if you cut out sugar from your diet, that would be a great start. Like you'd feel much better. You'd feel a lot less inflammation. If you cut out kind of those dirty, refined carbs, you're probably going to feel way better as well. So again, keto, carnivore, just figure out what works for you. But either way, what I tried was carnivore. I thought I'd try, I think it was a month or 2 months. I can't quite remember, but I went at least a month. I had this promo shoot that I was going to do for my brand and podcast. I had been wanting to try carnivore anyway, so I thought, why not? I'll give it a go. I looked into it. Now, what I ate a ton of was red meat, eggs, and butter, because all I had heard that if you keep it high fat, it helps with your digestion, but also it keeps you fuller for longer. Now, with it, I didn't measure anything. I didn't measure the quantities. I didn't weigh anything. I just ate, and I saw how much I ate and went from there. Very, very similar experience to intermittent fasting. Incredibly similar. The most mental clarity I've ever had on a diet, on a specific diet, is carnivore. It was just a more energized version of fasting, basically. That feeling you get when you're fasting, the clarity, the easy thinking, the energy, it was that, but you had food in your stomach. It wasn't just relying on the fast itself. So that was a very interesting similarity that I found, was that the feeling of fasting and carnivore, very similar. Now, I got into ketosis with extended fasting probably 3 to 5 days in. Now, the first time, my diet was pretty bad at the time. More refined carbs, more sugars, wasn't great at all. However, the second time, it probably took 3 days, maybe 3. With carnivore, 2 days maximum, I was into ketosis. You got the weird taste in your mouth, all that sort of stuff. And it's funny that ketosis happened more with food than without. And I think it's just the fat content. I think the fat content, the protein, it just moved things along so much quicker. I've even thought about, and I haven't done this yet, but I've thought about doing an extended fast, but tapping into ketosis first. So having a bunch of protein and fat for a couple of days, hitting ketosis, then fasting, and just seeing if it shreds more fat or if it just goes back to, we'll get rid of everything. So I'm not too sure. It'd be interesting though. So I'll pencil it in for later, potentially. With carnivore, I found the energy was up. That was really good. The simplicity of the diet was amazing. I can't stress that enough. Food is awesome. I'm a big food advocate. I love all different sorts of food. But to have that, I thought it was going to be painful. I thought it was going to be a painful process, missing out on other foods, even though I love, steak and eggs and things like that. I thought I was going to really, really miss it. But the simplicity was great. The other thing that it had that I have never seen in any other diet was that you are constantly full. So it's so much easier to do than other diets. Carnivore, I was constantly full. I would eat breakfast and I'd be full for 6 hours. I'd probably have 3 or 4 eggs, some leftover steak with some butter, and it was great. I felt energized. I felt ready for the day. I felt really good, and I wouldn't have to eat until, 6-ish hours later, and I wasn't struggling. I was fine throughout the day. So that was awesome, to not feel hungry. That was such a amazing thing. I've never had that on any other diet. So that's a big tick for carnivore. The simplicity was awesome. All I had to do was cook a steak or fry up some eggs. some bacon, chicken, whatever you're eating. It was great. And it was very simple. I did find that I needed to include more fats because if I had anything that was leaner, I just found I was struggling a bit more. So I'd take the occasional bite of butter. I tried this thing called Carnivore crack. Careful. Carnivore crack was basically you just cook a ton of bacon, chopped up, and with a ton of butter, melt it into a tray and put it in the freezer. And then you break off bits of like bark. And I simultaneously enjoyed it and didn't enjoy it. It was a lot. Like it was a lot of fat all at once. The butter and the fat from the bacon was just, it was a lot. Try it out. See what you think. You do get full and it is tasty, but it's just a lot. Like it's just heaps. But it was good. I did need to increase the butter aspect of things or the fat aspect of things. But overall, carnivore was a very easy diet to stick to. And I think it would be a very good thing for people to do to just kind of reset their system because obviously it's going to lack other things, but the amount of, good that comes from just steak and eggs, the amount of vitamins and things that are from these like near complete proteins is awesome. Like complete foods. Eggs and steak, for example, they keep you full for so long that you don't really crave other foods as much. Everything's very simple. And just to not worry about food, I think about food so much. So that was really great to have a break from that. That was actually, thinking about it now, that was actually so helpful. So yeah, that's another tick for carnivore. The one thing I did find, I found the reaction my body had was awesome. I really liked how I began to look. I kind of looked more like how I feel when you go to the gym, when you go to the gym and you feel bigger and stronger and stuff like that. And then I started to look that way more day to day. That was really cool. So the getting leaner was awesome. I know I lost a bit of body fat with it. I know that it would have also just been weight in general. You just lose weight. And water, I'm guessing as well, probably a decent amount of water as well. But the fat loss was great. I really enjoyed that. So another big tick for carnivore. And again, this could be something that you could adopt, but it's something that you could adapt into your life as well. You could use as a tool for a time and things like that. Similar to fasting, intermittent fasting. One thing I did find surprising with carnivore, because I figured I'd probably have good energy, and I wanted to know how that translated in the gym. Personally, I found that my workouts went down a little bit in strength and in stamina, but I would recover really well. So for example, if I could do maybe 7 reps of a certain weight, I might do 4, but I'm there and I'm so keen. And then I start and I'm like, I feel strong, but then I get to 4 and I'm like, I am so cooked. But then when I stop, I recover quite quickly. So that was an interesting thing to see with carnivore, is that I think maybe I needed more fat to kind of, push things. Maybe it was a protein thing. Maybe I just needed to increase more. I just needed to eat more. I'm not too sure. But I know that was something that I was surprised with carnivore, was that I had the energy for the workouts, probably more so. And I reacted well to everything, but my stamina and strength went down a little bit. So maybe I needed to eat more. I'm not too sure, but look out for that if you do decide to give it a try. The reason why I wanted to compare these different things is because these are all ways of weight loss, ways of increasing your health, and ways of maybe just figuring out what works for your body. And the reason why I wanted to compare them is because everybody's really different. Your body is so different, and mine is too. And there are people who live on carnivore and they see nothing but great results. There's people who do carnivore and they were like, I'm dehydrated all the time, I need to change things. Or I'm actually lacking this, I need to do this. So it's really just figuring out about what works for your body, because some things will heal it, like Crohn's disease has been healed by, carnivore and random meat heavy diets. You've got intermittent fasting, helping with a ton of different benefits and lowering sugars and diabetes and things like that. But then you've also got extended fasting, which is getting rid of cells that can cause cancer and things like that. So there's all these different benefits, and it's just about figuring out what works for your body. So these are the things that helped me. Some of the things I've incorporated, some of the things I want to tweak and try again. Like I'm kind of keen to give carnivore another go and maybe get it to a point where I'm adding in a bit of fruit and things like that, because I've heard that that's really good for you too, increases natural sugars. So again, just trial and error, and I'll see how I go. But I hope this helps you as well, because ultimately, one size doesn't fit all. You'll figure out what works for your body, but you'll also figure out what you enjoy. Like, I've enjoyed different things to do with all these diets, and I've got to figure out what kind of works. And I'm not 100% sure on that yet. I might just stick to whole foods and do steak and salad, or, meat and veggies, and just do that. And that is a great thing to do. That's just a classic meat and veg diet, So there's so many different things you can do. Trial and error is key. Take note of things. I hope this helps. Try it out for yourself. That's my experience. I hope yours is positive. Have a good one. Check out my links and my other episodes. Have a good one.